Hi everyone at Ivydale, it's Ms Nicholls here. I hope you're all keeping well. I'm going to share with you today one of my favourite books, which is called The Lost Thing by Shaun Tan. So, you want to hear a story? Well, I used to know a whole lot of pretty interesting ones. Some of them so funny you'd laugh yourself unconscious. Others so terrible you'd never want to repeat them. But I can't remember any of those. So I'll just tell you about the time I found that lost thing. This all happened a few summers ago, one rather ordinary day by the beach. Not much was going on. I was, as usual, working tirelessly on my bottle top collection, and stopped to look up for no particular reason. That's when I first saw the thing. I must have stared at it for a while. It had a really weird look about it, a sad, lost sort of look. Nobody else seemed to notice it was there, too busy doing beach stuff, I guess. Naturally, I was intrigued. I decided to investigate. Sure didn't do much. It just sat there, looking out of place. I was baffled. It was quite friendly though, once I started talking to it. I played with the thing for most of the afternoon. It was great fun, yet I couldn't help feeling that something wasn't quite right. As the hours slouched by, it seemed less and less likely that anybody was coming to take the thing home. There was no denying the unhappy truth of the situation. It was lost. I asked a few people if they knew anything about it, but nobody was very helpful. I took the lost thing over to Pete's place. Pete has an opinion on just about everything. Cool, he said. I'm trying to find out who owns it, I told him. I don't know, man, said Pete. It's pretty weird. Maybe it doesn't belong to anyone. Maybe it doesn't come from anywhere. Some things are like that. He paused for dramatic effect. Just plain lost. There was nothing left to do but take the thing home with me. I couldn't just leave it wandering the streets. Plus, I felt kind of sorry for it. My parents didn't really notice it at first. Too busy discussing current events, I guess. Eventually, I had to point it out to them. Its feet are filthy, shrieked Mum. It could have all kinds of strange diseases, warned Dad. Take it back to where you found it, they demanded, both at the same time. It's lost, I said. But they had already started talking about something else. I hid the thing in our back shed and gave it something to eat once I found out what it liked. It seemed a bit happy then, even though it was still lost. I checked the local paper for any lost pet notices, but only found a lot of good deals on refrigerator repairs. I remember thinking then that Pete was probably right, that some things were just plain lost. In any case, I sure couldn't keep the thing in the shed forever. Mum or Dad would eventually notice it when they came out looking for a hammer or something. It was a real dilemma. I was wondering what to do when a small advertisement on the last page of the paper happened to catch my eye. Are you finding that the order of day-to-day life is unexpectedly disrupted by unclaimed property, objects without names, troublesome artefacts of unknown origin, filing cabinet leftovers, things that just don't belong? Don't panic. We've got a pigeonhole to stick it in. The Federal Department of Odds and Ends. The next morning we caught a tram into the city. We arrived at a tall grey building with no windows. It was pretty dark in there, and it smelt like disinfectant. I have a lost thing, I called to the receptionist at the front desk. Fill in these forms, she said. The lost thing made a small sad noise. I was looking around for a pen when I felt something tug the back of my shirt. If you really care about that thing, you shouldn't leave it here, said a tiny voice. This is a place for forgetting, leaving behind, smoothing over. Here, take this. It was a business card with a kind of sign on it. It wasn't very important looking, but it did seem to point somewhere. Cheers, I said. At this point, we left the tall grey building and hunted all over the place for this sign. It wasn't an easy job, and I can't say I knew what it all meant. Eventually, we found what seemed to be the right place, in a dark little gap off some anonymous little street. The sort of place you'd never know existed unless you were actually looking for it. I pressed a buzzer on the wall and this big door opened.